Well, hello and welcome to the On It Not In It interview series podcast. I'm your host, Todd Eppert, and today I'm joined by Tim Pallay, who is the president of Duracote Corporation. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to kick us
Absolutely. Thanks
off
for
with a
having me,
brief
Todd.
background as to who you are and what you do?
Sure. So like you mentioned, I'm Tim Pallay, president of Duracote Corporation in Ravenna, Ohio. I've been the president here since last summer, but I've been with the company for 7 years in my current stint and about 12 years total. I started here actually on the plant floor back when I was 15. Worked my way up, did an internship here, went through marketing, sales, did some purchasing. Most recently, I was the director of sales and marketing here, and now the president. So what we do, we're a coating, laminating, and compounding company. We make materials mainly for aviation, automotive, clean room, various industrial applications, and then also high pressure laminate markets. Anywhere where something needs a flame retardant material, sound attenuating, electrostatic dissipating, or highly abrasion resistant material, that's something that we would apply. We work with the companies like Boeing, Lockheed, Formica, Wilson Art, so large names that are widely known in the marketplace, even though we're only a small 25-person group here in, kind of a blue collar town in Ohio.
Nice, excellent. Yeah, so 25 people. Thank you for the history there. It sounds like you sat just about in every seat in the business, and now you're just at the presidency, right?
Still sitting in all those seats today.
Still willing to go out and make parts in the back, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So let me ask just 50. You said you've been there since 15. What was it that sparked you to work in a small business in Urbana versus maybe stretching your legs and stepping outside in the bigger world?
Sure. So I've actually done both. So I used to work for Gojo Industries in Akron, which is a bigger company. I was a product manager and project manager there. And really what I like about working in a small company is the ability to wear different hats, do something different every day. Whereas when I was working at Gojo, I was doing mainly engineering changes and working off the same spreadsheets every day. Not saying anything negative about big companies, but it's more siloed. If I want to get a decision or a task done here or a decision made here, I walk down the hall and I talk to a couple people and we have a decision made in a number of minutes. Whereas with big companies, we may take months to make a decision. So that's really what I like about this. Every day it's something different where I may be working on a 737 project one day. The next day I'm working on, something that goes into a Nissan. The day after that, working on clean room, and the day after that I may be in something totally new like an x-ray barrier. So it's just, it gets me excited to wake up and not know exactly what's going to happen here, and to still do all the things that I'm used to be doing by wearing different hats, talking to our purchasing people and not, being in different time zones than, some of my coworkers.
Oh, okay. So you're not all 25 in the same place.
We are in the same place. I'm saying what I like about that is that everybody's right down the hall versus being with a big company where, we've got like with Gojo, I worked with people out of Australia. I worked with our people in Europe or something like that. Everybody's right here.
I got it. Okay. Sorry. My misunderstanding there.
No worries.
I missed the difference there.
Yep.
So recent transition to president, I think you said about a year ago, sounds roughly, maybe a little less than a year ago.
Yep.
So you came into the job, I'm sure, with some preconceived notions. What were some things you had wrong? What were some misconceptions you had about leading the business?
Well, I thought I knew everything. I thought that, well, based on what I've done, I work with our vendors, I work with our customers. I think I got this, but there's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors, even though I've been involved in those conversations and those decisions, that are not as they seem. And truthfully, I think the biggest thing, which somebody told me going into this, is it can be fairly lonely at the top. Although there's people that are helping you along the way, when it comes down to a decision, especially the difficult ones, people may not like you for it. And you have to do what's right, not only for whoever it is that you're talking to, but, the rest of the company, whether that's 5, 10, 20, or 100 people. You have to think about the whole and make sure that you're protecting not only those people, but there's those families as well. So you may not always be liked every day, but you have to be respected and know everybody has to know that you're doing what's right for the company, not just yourself.
That's great. I appreciate that. I'm sorry I laughed at you, but you started by saying you thought you knew everything. So I thought
I'm
that was
pretty
kind of
I'm pretty naive. I like to think that that I've dealt with everything, even though I haven't been in the workforce for that long.
funny. Right. Yeah.
But I like to think too, over the past 4 years or so, since the beginning of 2020, that we faced pretty much everything we ever will, and we haven't had a lot of help along the way when it comes to small business over the last few years. So things are starting to turn around and go in the right direction. We're back on a growth trajectory versus a survival trajectory like we've been on in the past few years. So starting to see the work that we've been doing here come through.
Excellent. Great answer there for a good transition for the next question I have, which is what's the biggest challenge you're facing today? So like pandemic obviously rocked your world. You got
Yep.
crushed. You dig out of that. Now what?
Today it's people.
Okay.
Finding people, specifically production type people. It's always been difficult, but finding people who are loyal, like we just had last month, two people retire that between the two of them had 91 years combined at Duracote, longer than the company's been in business, which is 77 years. Those guys aren't around anymore. People are job hopping like crazy. Guys are going to leave a company if they get $1 an hour more elsewhere. And less people of the younger generation are interested in the trades and in manufacturing. Although it's a good thing, and I fit into the category. Everybody is told when you leave high school you're going to college. Well, that's not necessarily the right thing for everybody. It happened to be so for me and a lot of people that I know, but it's not for everybody. A lot of people are being pushed away from these types of jobs, and they want to sit at home on a computer and work remotely and do those types of things, whereas a small manufacturer, although it may not be the cushy job that everybody dreams of, it provides you with that stability. But I mean, as a small company too, when you've got some of the larger behemoths in the industry offering $25 to $30 an hour to start, that's not where we live. So that's our biggest difficulty today. If you asked me that question a year ago or 2 years ago, it would have been supply chain delays. It would have been
Yeah.
logistics delays. It would have been basically everything else that was going on in the world. Now there a lot of that's still there. I mean, you're seeing, a lot of product discontinuations, raw material discontinuations, vertical integrations with the big companies. So that's difficult. But, at the end of the day, our job is to get product out the door, and we need the people on the shop floor to be here and to be people that we can rely on. And right now that's pretty difficult. Other than the people that we have in the building, we're very fortunate. We've got a lot of guys who have been here anywhere between 20 and 45 years, which is a pro and a con. You got a lot of tribal knowledge there. You've got a lot of guys who know exactly what they do and don't need to be micromanaged. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's an age cliff, and at some point those guys aren't around anymore, and they have to be replaced by somebody. And that's what's difficult to find, especially for a company that, although we're small, does a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Unfortunately, that's been a trend for a long time. So even I was in manufacturing for a lot of years, and that was always the challenge was
Mm-hmm.
people have to go to college is the rule, right?
Yep.
Ironically, recently I read that there's a new trend that the people are finally waking up. Is it really
Mm-hmm.
worth 120, 150,
Right.
$200,000 to get an education that I probably won't use? So
Exactly.
yeah, so hopefully that trend starts to tip the other way and start to turn people back to the trades, to the
Yep.
skilled labor workforce that we need. So
Yep.
yeah, so Tim, I appreciate you sharing that. So along with that, you have to attract those future younger generations. You mentioned a lot of big companies that you work with, some big names. Boeing, I heard you talked about a lot of different verticals that you're involved in, a lot of different spaces in industry. It's not just aerospace. It's all the other things that you mentioned in the very
Yep.
beginning. So how do you stay innovative, and how do you stay a player in front of a Boeing?
Sure. So what we've done, especially the past couple of years, throughout the pandemic, we tried to use our time wisely. So when everybody was slow and everybody was sitting at home and nobody was able to work and there wasn't a demand, we went back to the drawing board with our product offering. We went through all of, like, I'll just give you one example, Boeing system, to say, where are they single sourced? Where can we see a fit with what we do? What innovations can we make here that make us more attractive to the larger companies of the world? And one of those things is, in aviation, weight is obviously king. So we said, okay, where can we provide a weight savings. So we were able to, within the past year, commercialize a product and we're already one of the we produce one of the lightest flooring products for the aviation industry, for the high wear areas of the aircraft, like the galleys, entryways, lavatories that exists out there that still meets the OEM standard. We were able to take anywhere between about 15 and 35% of the weight out of our standard product. So we've got a technical director here who's been here over 20 years now, who's been developing products for over 50 years, who just knows that market. He knows the chemistries, and we have some younger people under him who just need to learn from him. So, we have that. It goes back to what I said before. We have that knowledge in-house, and we need to get that in the hands of other people and focus on what we do well and further figure out how to capitalize on that. And I think the biggest thing too, just over the past few years, because I already mentioned that supply chain was such an issue, we've managed our stock levels and we've managed our resources extremely well. And we've been able to keep our lead times the same as what they were prior to the pandemic, which that in itself is a huge accomplishment. And I think just in terms, innovation today is different than what it was a few years ago. And honestly, just, serving your customers in a way that you should is innovation in itself. Because you've probably noticed yourself, the customer service industry is just dying. A lot of these suppliers aren't giving you, a truck won't show up and they don't tell you that it's not showing up, and you have to call them and say, why am I not getting my shipment on time? Or you'll get an order, but then the invoice will be 6% more than you expect it to be, or anything like that. The biggest thing that we do here and that we do well here is we serve our customers. If we're going to be one day late, we're telling you. Our goal here is to get a quote out. If anybody requests a quote within 24 hours, typically we're getting that out within 1 hour. And really, it's just caring for our customers, because at the end of the day, we won't be here if not for them. So that's when you talk about innovation. There's innovation in products and how we approach the marketplace, but there's also innovation in terms of how you do the job and doing it correctly. So that's what we really focus on here.
Got it. Excellent. So we've talked a little bit about this already, a few questions. You've been in your seat for a year now as the president, or roughly a year. You've already talked about the fact that, hey, it was survival for a few years coming out of pandemic. You're back on a growth trajectory. So have you had time to sit down and think about the future and make some plans? And would you be willing to share a glimpse into what the future looks like for you?
I have no plans other than growing this company into what I think it can be. And that would be, just giving you a little bit of insight into who we were before. When I got here, we were about 70% automotive. We were about 7% aviation. That was the lower margin product. That was the biggest part of our company. That changed in 2017 or so. And we switched our biggest product line, not switched, but our demand drove our product line on the high pressure laminate side to the biggest single product line that we have here, which is a higher margin product. But my biggest goal when I got here was to focus on the aviation products. My goal was to get it to by 2020 to 25%. We met that, and now aviation is about 35 to 40% of what we do here. And I really just saw that there was a big gap in terms of what our salespeople were focusing on. They were talking to the same industrial people every week. They were talking to, the same people who have known Duracote forever, and that's all on this side. But over here, you had some legacy aviation specs that we were approved to that nobody was really doing anything for, where really there's some very attractive things that we do, like color matching, like, custom products, like low minimum order quantity runs that can fit us into a bunch of different niche markets and, large markets. So we've been able to focus on those. And what I foresee for at least the next, 5 to 10 years is just continued growth, new market development, and turning this company back into what it was before the pandemic in terms of revenues, because we're still on our way back. But B, just continued growth here. Like I said, I've been here since I was 15 years old. At my earliest stage, I love this place. I love the people. I have no interest in doing anything else other than continuing to grow this business with the people who have been here with us for a long time.
Excellent. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. And so get back to being great again, it sounds like, is what you're thinking and trying to do. So
in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. So one final question for you. I mentioned before we even started that the listeners of the podcast are going to be entrepreneurs, business leaders, and small businesses. So what advice would you give to those folks from your years of experience?
Um, I think the biggest thing is just get involved in as many areas of the business as you can. A lot of people think today, oh, I want to, and it's fine if you think this way, don't get me wrong, but they think, I want to work for a company and I just want to be a buyer, or I just want to be, in operations. See as many different areas of the business as possible, because that's going to give you a full understanding and that's going to make people respect you more. I've done marketing here, I've done sales. I've done purchasing. I've been involved in operations. I mean, I've done kind of the whole thing. And I'm not going to say that's the only way to do it, because obviously there's a lot of different ways to be successful. But understanding, from the time you get a quote request to the time you finally finish a product and it gets tested in quality and sent out to a customer, understanding each step down the line of, what your process is will endear you to your people, and it will help you become successful. It's not going to make you be successful, but it's going to help you by people knowing, okay, if I'm asking for something, I know I'm asking something that can be done. Like, I'll give you an example of that. A lot of our salespeople over the years haven't understood our full manufacturing process or the quality process. And I made a point to spend quite a bit of time in quality to understand, okay, this test takes 24 hours for our product. This test takes 48 hours. This has to be conditioned for a week before it goes out. All those types of things. And our quality technician said to me one day, because I asked her, I said, okay, I know you need 2 days for that. So can you get this test done by Friday or whatever it was? And she kind of stops and she looks at me and she goes, wow, it's really refreshing to have a salesperson who actually understands how long this is going to take me before they just say, okay, I need to ship that today, get your stuff done. So just really understanding the entirety of your business, other than just, sitting at the top and saying, okay, I got to get product out by tomorrow, let's go. I think that's my biggest piece of advice to anybody. And truthfully, the other thing is, anybody can learn anything. If I went back to school today, I wouldn't do marketing, I would do operations, but that part doesn't necessarily matter. It's just, if you have an interest in something, if you're going to give something your all, you really can achieve anything. I am not a chemist by any means. I am not a scientist. That is not something I've ever been interested in. But I fool people and they think that I have a huge knowledge in that area, because I've just been interested and I've cared enough to make myself successful and learn what's going on here, and not just want to say, okay, we have a product in green, black, blue, and gray, I'm going to go sell that. I want to know how it's made, so I can talk to my customer about, well, this is what goes into it, so here's what you can get out of it. So just, I mean, if you want to learn something, if you want to be successful, you can go do it. It doesn't matter what type of education level you have, what type of background you have. Just be interested and ask questions.
Excellent. Love that advice, Tim. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Tim, thank you so much for joining us today, giving us some of
Absolutely.
your time, donating it for us to have this great podcast. Really appreciate you being on. It's great meeting you, learning more about your journey, entrepreneurial as it is, even though you're the president, not the owner, we talked about,
Sure.
but
Sure.
still a very entrepreneurial journey going all through those paths. So appreciate your time here, and we appreciate everyone that listens and watches, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Tim.